Good afternoon, everyone. It's currently 1 p.m. here in the UK. Hope you're all doing well. So this is the second attempt to do this live. I think the buffering problem's finished. All over. About an hour after my unsuccessful live last night that I had to abandon and postpone due to the excessive buffering, it seemed to fix itself. So I've not had a problem with buffering since maybe, I don't know, about 8:30 last night. I've watched a bunch of videos since then and not one has buffered. So if the buffering starts again today, I'll be really annoyed. I'll be really annoyed. I'll start to think that YouTube has it in for me. But no, I think we're good. But just let me know if there's any buffering on your end. And, well, hopefully, fingers crossed, it's all fine. All right, so what I want to do today is talk about the good old boys of Delphi, the good old connections that these people, like the sheriff and so on, seem to have. And we're going to watch a few videos, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the defense and the judge, just a little bit. Because one of the issues that Judge Francis Gull had with Richard Allen's defence, or should I say his ex-defence, Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie, was that they did a press release, shortly after they were appointed as his counsel last November. So I found that thing. I remember it happening, but I found that thing. And we're going to play it. And we're also going to play Doug Carter's Many Tentacles interview. So we've got a bunch of things to do today. So, yeah. All right. Let's see who's in the house. Give people a chance to come in. I don't think this is a terribly convenient time for everybody who watches my channel, but people can always hop in on the replay, can't they? Hello, Jackie, Mason, Carol, Purple AJ, Sylvia, Kit Kat, Aussie TV, Sue, Pincho. It's it's Michelle in the early afternoon today. Hi, Karen, Angela. What's we got? Tina, ASMR Tingle Pink. It's because of you that I'm doing this live. It's because of some information that you sent me. So I'm glad you're in the house to talk about this. Julie, your local grandmummy, kept me awake for 24 hours from Minnesota to Florida. I'm not sure that I could listen to my voice for 24 hours, but I'm glad I get your company. Mike, yes, it is. It does seem to be fixed. It does. Who else have we got? Angela Down Under with love. Wide awake for a pleasant change. Good stuff. Marek from a snowy Norway. Oh, well, it's a mild and dull here. Dull afternoon here. Hi, Holly, Kristen, Isabel, 0723 Trinity. Yes, definitely. Second time lucky. Definitely. We're all, what? We're all, I can't even say that. Oh, we're all mad here. I so need to get my eyes sorted. I do. Hi, Stephen, Sunshine, and a bunch of people coming in now. All right. We've got Spain in the house. What else have we got? It reminds you of Romper Room. Okay, let's get going with this then. Mount Shasta. Where's that? You got Yorkshire in the house, the wrong side of the Pennines. Germany is in the house. Tennessee is in the house. All right. So we all know, don't we? We all know this memorandum. We all know this. We've been talking about this memorandum for the last month. So we're not gonna read the memorandum again, don't worry. But one of the things that the defence talked about, one of the many things that Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie talked about in this memorandum, was the fact that Richard Allen was arrested 22 days before the election, the sheriff's election, where Tony Liggett was appointed the sheriff, elected position, obviously, of Carroll County. Well, let me introduce you to R&M Productions. Now, this is a link that ASMR Tingle Pink sent me by email. So I've been having a look at this channel and watching a bunch of videos, and they're very well made videos, and they've not got a lot of videos on their channel. They've only got 48 videos, and the most recent ones have been about Rex Hurman, Letitia, but the majority of the videos on their channel is about the Delphi case. So going back over a year. So I watched a bunch of these videos, and I want to play you a couple of them. The link to this channel, it's R&M Productions, is already in the description box, but I'll put it in the chat as well. So this is just their channel link. And I've not had a chance to watch all of the videos on their channel, but I've watched a bunch of them. And there's some very interesting ones in relation to the sheriff. So we're going to watch this small one here. We're going to watch this one. This is the sheriff and the, well, like the contenders to the sheriff's race. I'm going to watch that one. And then we're going to watch one of the recent ones where you will see all of the faces that have been involved in Richard Allen's arrest. You're going to see Dan Dulin. You're going to see Liggett. And you're going to see that they've done this before to somebody. They've lied. They've made things up. And ultimately, in this person's case, his name is Jesse Snyder. Not for murder, but for a whole bunch of made-up charges, including terrorism. And they made it up. And eventually, a judge dismissed the case. Sadly, though, for Jesse Snyder, it was too late, because they'd already poisoned his name, his reputation in the local community. He couldn't get a job. He couldn't restart his life. The house that he'd recently bought, he was only a young man, he was only in his 20s. A house that he'd recently bought was foreclosed. So he lost his house, lost his job, lost his entire livelihood, and eventually he lost his life because he died. And that's all because of people like Liggett and Dan Dulin who lied. Yeah. So they have, should we say, a track record for doing this kind of thing to people. So this channel has really opened my eyes. Now, I have watched some videos that I don't agree with, really. The channel seemed very focused on Ron Logan as a suspect before Richard Allen was arrested. But a lot of people focused on Ron Logan. A lot of people still think Ron Logan was involved. So I'm not going to hold that against this channel because, you know, fair enough for exploring the Ron Logan possibility. What I'm focusing on here is the people involved, heavily involved in the arrest of Richard Allen. Yeah, it's horrible, Jesse. Poor Jesse Snyder. For doing nothing. Playing paintball with his friends. That's all he was doing. Playing paintball with his friends and setting off some firecrackers. And poor old Jesse Snyder, whose property they were on, had his whole life upended and ultimately ended. So let's start with the first video. Now I want to play this one. It's only nearly 4 minutes, but this is before. So let's just fire it up here and have a look at the box. Okay, so this was published in July 2022, but this is July 21st, 2022. So this was a few months before the election that appointed Tony Liggett to the position of sheriff. Now, before that, Tobe Leesenby was sheriff. So before November 2022, Tobe Leesenby was sheriff, who also heavily involved in Richard Allen's arrest. But listen to this. We don't even have to listen to the whole thing here. We don't even have to listen to the whole 3 minutes and 45 seconds to realize what's going down here. Okay, so let's play this video. Let me know if the sound is okay with you. I'll turn it up my end. It should be okay. I can hear it, so hopefully it's okay. Let me know though.
I don't know of any more to say, but we're going to be looking over these now. If you two gentlemen from the sheriff's office, sheriff and next sheriff, sheriff and next sheriff.
So this is a commissioners' meeting. So this is when obviously some campaigning would be going on for Tony Liggett as sheriff. This is a commissioners' meeting. And did you hear that? Let's just play it again. We only have to play a few seconds here. Listen.
I don't know of any more to say, but we're going to be looking over these now. If you two gentlemen from the sheriff's office, sheriff and next sheriff.
So if you two gentlemen from the sheriff's office, the sheriff and the next sheriff. So Tobe Leesenby, who was the current sheriff at that time, was in the room. But the next sheriff, well, either this gentleman here, this commissioner person, knew who the next sheriff was going to be. Did he have a crystal ball? Had he consulted the spirits? Did he have some kind of foreknowledge? Because the sheriff's election didn't happen for, well, hold on, August, September, October, November, for another 4 months. So why was this commissioner saying the next sheriff? Why? Is it because Tony Liggett had been promised the sheriff's job? Did he think that nobody else would possibly get elected? Isn't that shady? Or was it just an oversight? Did this commissioner not think? Not think. Yeah, Monica. An elected position already decided. Oh, Daughter of Scotland. Thank you so much. Gifted 5 memberships. Let's see who got let's see who got them. Leah, Trixie's Creations, Gypsy Girl, Amy, and Monica. All gifted memberships courtesy of Daughter of Scotland. Thank you so much. So you get a month's membership. So there's a members tab. If you go and click on the members tab, and you can see members videos, members lives, and some status updates, which are mainly pictures of dogs. But was he running unappointed? No, he wasn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to the next. We're going to switch to the next video here. Now I'm going to play all of this simply because it's interesting. Because Tony Liggett did have an opposer. He did. And this is I don't know what you would call it, a meeting where the two contenders took part in a question and answer session. And you'll notice that this is April 2022. So when that commissioner in July 2022, no, it wasn't uncontested. This is what I'm saying. No. That commissioner in July 2022, who said the sheriff and the next sheriff, referring to 2 people in the room, Tob Leesenby, current sheriff, and then Tony Liggett, future sheriff or next sheriff, knew full well that there was an opponent, knew well that this position, this elected position, was being challenged. It wasn't that Tony Liggett got in like Sheriff Ronnie Lawson does in Hawkins County, Tennessee, gets in because no one else wants the job. So it's just uncontested. So he gets in by default. No, there was an opponent. And there'd been an opponent well known since April, since at least April. Okay, let's play this. So again, this is a meeting like a questions and answers session in April 2022, Carroll County Sheriff Showdown.
What would you do as sheriff to help get justice and closure for the unsolved double homicides?
We're doing things. It's not new. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the room. I don't have all those years of experience. There are a dime a dozen retired guys out there that we've talked to that want to come and help.
So what would you do? What would you change? What would you make happen to try to solve this?
I would continue the path we're on. We're on a good path.
Did you see that article there? And I will play it all the way through after I stopped it this time. Liggett. So this is from March. Wins primary election sheriff race with 51.5% of the vote. So he certainly wasn't unopposed. He was only just getting by. Only just getting put in there as a contender. So there was 3 Republican county candidates: Lee Hord, Tony Liggett, and Mike Thompson. So Liggett received 51.5% of the vote. Thomas 37, and then Horde 11. So we'd only just got through this primary election here. So could we say that him knowing he had a contender was a little bit alarming for him? Could we say that? Could we say that? Well, let's listen to what they have to say. And some of the questions were relating to the Delphi murders. So let's just run this through out of interest.
I had the wonderful opportunity to go to the Lafayette Police Department, where I have been for the last 20 years. I'm a lead homicide investigator.
I did say I was going to let this run through without interrupting, but I am only just going to interrupt this once. So this is August now. So this is the Sheriff's Showdown from August. And this is the contender. So he's standing as an independent. And on your right there is Tony Liggett. Yaya says, I saw the debate between him and his Democratic opponent. I think this dude's an independent, but whatever. I was sitting down. I was sitting down embarrassed for Liggett. Yeah, he's not a very good speaker. He's not a good speaker. So perhaps his, hope of being elected sheriff was in question. Maybe he felt he needed a little push to get there to the winning post first. Yeah, thinking of Clint Eastwood. Yeah. I mean, these are really well put together videos. They really are. Check out this channel. They are really well put together videos and really nicely edited. So it is weird. It's really weird. Yeah, they're in a church. Yeah. Strange. But maybe that's just a place in Carroll County where there's enough seats for people to come in. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to play this through now. So on the left-hand side is the contender. Right-hand side is Tony Liggett.
I'm also a polygrapher. I've had a number of cases go to trial and won. I'm excited for this opportunity. This is a natural progression in my career. Started in Flora, I want to end in Flora.
I've been in law enforcement for 21 years. I consider myself a workhorse. I lead by example. And when people want things done, they come to me to get it done. There's been a lot of attacks against my credibility, my integrity, my morals, and my ethics. Those things are all not true. Those are things that I take great pride in. And that's what's going to lead the Sheriff's Department to the future.
Personnel inventory at first. As you see, there are some people that support me and some that don't, some that publicly do, some that publicly won't, and I understand that. I'm not concerned with that because they're professionals, they're good people. I have worked with most of them, what I have seen in my 20-year career at LPD. We have been afforded some of the best training, and I want to bring that training back to the community. I have a network of resources that are just chomping at the bit to get that opportunity. I want to get some technology that will work for us. Body-worn cameras are huge. We've had them for the last 10 years, and they are key in helping us stay accountable.
Our training we're afforded any training that we want to go to. That's not an issue. As far as the technology, body cameras is a positive. The guys want to have body cameras. Expense is the big issue with that. Equipment is a big thing for us, but we don't have deep pockets too. So I would say those two equipment pieces are pretty big.
I guess I would ask for more detail, the kinds of training and the frequency of training.
Each of us have state mandates to stay a certified law enforcement officer. However, the Lafayette Police Department goes above and beyond and has since I've been there. Some of the more relevant training that we do, simulated training for traffic stop, mental health, we do CIT training, active shooter. We do that with simunition. We did that at Jeff High School here recently because we all seen what happened in Uvalde. The camera showing the officers sitting there and watching what happened. We don't do that. That's not proper training. And that's something that I want to bring back to this community. Everything that I have had and been afforded is what I want to bring back to this community.
Prior to COVID, we like to try and shoot quarterly. Our guys, again, the Uvalde situation, and every one of our guys here will go in and take out a shooter by themselves if needed. Especially since we are a smaller department of 13 people, we have to be self-sufficient. We can't always send guys out to do some of that training that's required to be done more often. So it's with great pride that I tell you that we're pretty self-sufficient in all active things to do with law enforcement, and we can train ourselves. We bring trainers in. We've sent guys to Lafayette to their training academy. All those things are afforded to us as well.
But I keep hearing guys, everything about guys. How about recruiting, and what sort of ideas do you have for recruiting, and what about recruiting females? How about that?
We had Jill Hammond, who was a female on our department. Now she's the Camden Town Marshal. We had another female at one point. Recruiting's tough. It's really tough right now. It's kind of more of a long-term goal, but getting into the schools, the Ivy Tech law enforcement class, we need to forge some bonds and start looking, maybe not for tomorrow immediately, but a few years down the road in our recruiting.
Yes, recruiting is tough. Nobody wants to do this job anymore. Why would they? You get sued. But as far as recruiting efforts, the Lafayette Police Department has a number of females. One of them is here right now, actively seeking females that want to be in law enforcement because they're some of the best. I've been at Ivy Tech as a part-time job for 18 years. In fact, that's where I met my wife. So I forge those bonds every Monday when I'm there. As far as our hiring effort, and it can be across the board, even with Carroll County, recruiting is very key in finding somebody that wants to work in a culture of excellence.
How do you plan to work with the commissioners and council to achieve the budgeting or to progress the agenda that you have for the department?
So I recently attended a meeting. I have watched them online, and I think what moreover than anything needs to happen is clear articulation to those folks, because the 3 commissioners have never been law enforcement officers to my knowledge. So they need educated on what we need as a community and what we need as a department. That's the biggest key. Obviously the commissioners and then the council controls the money. So once everybody is in the same loop with what is needed,
Communication and being transparent with where you're wanting to go, and trying to get them on board with you to achieve those goals. It's educating them on what we need and why we need it, and being transparent on how much it's going to cost and things associated with it.
It's not necessarily about the murders, but my question is, how will you prepare for that type of occurrence when it happens the next time?
Speaking of specifically the trails, again, it was kind of reactive at the time, but there's cameras out there now. One of the bigger things just in Carroll County in general that differs from Lafayette is the technology, or the lack thereof. Tech on the trails is great. Is there enough? There's probably never going to be enough. But you debrief, you talk about how you handled things, that real life situation amongst yourself. You talk to other people about how you responded, and they can tell you how they may have handled a little bit different. You need to be open with hearing criticisms and other people's ideas. So
that's the best way I can say.
So let's pray that never happens again, ever. But moreover, your question was based on how would I handle something like that? Well, look at my performance at the Lafayette Police Department for the last 14 years as a detective. We see this every day. I could go into case stats, but I won't right now because that's on my website unless someone asks specifically. But under my lead, 10 homicides convicted, 2 of them doubles, 42 cases where I've assisted others, and hundreds of other death scenes. So when we get called to a scene like that, we take command of it and we know exactly what to do and what manpower it needs and where we're lacking, we pick up the slack.
I have another question from online. They want to know what the next steps would be for the to looking into Abby and Libby's murder. Will you call in other people to help, or do you think you have it? What are you willing to do to solve this?
Just as a matter of fact, just recently, well, let me start over. There were 4 full-time detectives in the Sheriff's Department that actively every day work the case. Sometimes the 2 detectives from Carroll County are pulled away to work other cases within the county. The state police have just recently added another full-time person to this case. We have brought people in. There are other people aside from us, core group, working on this case. We're open to any ideas, whatever people want to bring. That doesn't necessarily mean, as it stands right now, we're going to bring additional people. That doesn't mean down the road that won't change. The ultimate goal, the end goal, is to solve this case, and we're moving in a very positive direction. And we have people working this case, not just from Carroll County. The day that we found the girls, I remember Lee saying in our last debate, Kevin Hammond and I were out of our league. I don't disagree. But we had, the Indiana State Police had people there. The FBI had people there. Eventually, Mark was one of them that was there, not the day after, but we had 50 to 60 people, investigators from various agencies there. We're moving in a positive direction.
This is going to be very, very simple. I just spoke to Mike Patty, and I pledged to him that I would not use that tragedy in my campaign whatsoever.
I know that there's been talk about Paul Holes wanted to help and that he was turned away. I don't know if that's true, but also, can you let everybody know that I don't think you guys are in charge of the Flora girls, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that because a lot of people think you guys are.
I don't have that answer, but it is online, so. There's a lot. Look at Reddit.
I'll just be honest with you. We have a group of people right now working the case. You can get too many hens in the hen house. If things work out down the road and Paul was to contact us, I wouldn't rule that out, but I'm just saying probably not at this very moment. Was there another part to that question? Oh, the Flora fire. Yeah, that is not a Carroll County case. One of our deputies was injured in that. The Flora officer was injured in that. But the Indiana State, that's an Indiana State police case.
I'd like to touch on transparency just a little bit. I guess, I think as most of us feel that there's been somewhat a lack of transparency. We don't really know what's going on in the community. I would ask Mark what you would bring from the Lafayette area to improve that. Tony, I'd ask you what you would change since you're in the middle of it now. So those would be the questions.
Transparency in which aspect?
Well, with the public, with the commissioners, with the council, in general, I mean, there's a lack of transparency. In my eyes, I don't see what's going on. So in turn, what is it you can do?
What I see from the Lafayette Police Department is we have a PIO. So when there is a case that is ongoing, there's a PIO that is notifying the public where the situation is at And as much information as that can be shared, if it's a public safety issue, obviously it's shared at a much more deliberate time frame. If it's something that occurred and it's no longer a public threat, everyone is in the know. You have to do that so people don't worry and people don't get online and start looking for things that they don't know what they're looking for and cause panic. People need to be aware of what the police are doing, especially this day and age. There shouldn't be any secrets unless it's case sensitive and or something that involves a child that we don't have to give names to. But for mostly the cases that I see, people need to be aware of what's going on. And what I bring to the table is I see that there is a public need and a public want.
So it's an open book. Community engagements are important. Forums are important, just like this, so that people can get to know people. And the public trust is important. And the only way you get that is being transparent, completely transparent and accountable.
I don't know. I'm not sure examples of how we may or may not have been transparent. To answer your last question, I'm a team builder. I like to think I can take a multitude of people and form a team, and everything we do is about teamwork, including with the commissioners and the council. Just like when we needed to rent an investigation center, that was put on me to find a place, find out how much it's going to cost, and they wanted to know every little step of it, and we got that done. It's all a communication, and even with the public, PIO is Public Information Officer, and right now at our sheriff's department, that is basically the sheriff. There are things, having these people get very frustrated. We can't talk about it. We can't divulge information about an ongoing case. But there are things like code red that our dispatch puts out when there's an accident or a road closed. There are ways that you can get signed up to get some of those things. I'm very open about almost anything that it can be. There's no reason to hide anything.
The sheriff's department does more than just the crime itself. What other services would you make available to the public?
The topic in Carroll County is animal control. The way things are happening right now with our animal control, it is just not working. We don't have anywhere to take them. That'll be a huge milestone to this county, and finding the right people to run it. Those will be big. Animal control is a pretty hot topic.
So yes, it is a hot topic, and I believe, again, education to the commissioners and to the council to get a shelter up and running would be key. One thing that I found was a little strange to me is there's no or limited transport officers. Is that correct?
We had one, and now we have none.
Yeah, so that's a staffing issue. So that needs remedied, because taking road deputies off to transport prisoners is that's a public safety issue.
What is your plan, or do you have a plan on how you retain the staff that you have?
Very good question. Because as it turns out, to prepare for this, I've looked at the wages that these guys are making. That needs remedied immediately, and that's again education. However, to retain staff, you've got to find people that want to do this job, and I think they are those people. But moreover, create a culture of excellence so they're empowered by this training, and it doesn't have to cost money. The resources are out there and available by other agencies that want to help train and want to help our guys. And I say this, our guys, because I live in this community and they protect me just as well as they protect everyone else in here, and I thank them for that. Create a culture of excellence where they want to do the job and they want to do it for their friends, neighbors, and friends. That's how you retain people.
As I said earlier, the people that work at the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, especially enforcement side of it, they're not here for the money. Would they like to see the money? Absolutely. Money is a big recruiting aspect. Their department's throwing sign-on bonuses, $5,000, $10,000 if you come over here and work at the Howard County Sheriff's Department, and yet they're still here. That's a testament to the people that you have responding to your calls every day. They're pretty remarkable. A strong leader helps keep them here. So it takes a strong leader, finding the people that want to be here, and if it's weeding out the people that don't want to be here, then so be it. But you have to love Carroll County to be here.
Well, what did you make to that? If I was in the Carroll County in 2022 and I had a vote, I would have voted for Mark, the independent. And it's nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with, oh, I don't want a Republican in there, or I don't want this, I don't want that. Based on those answers alone, I think Mark won pretty much every point, in my opinion. Now, obviously, these kind of meetings, these kind of like mini debates, you know, they can make promises and they don't have to keep them. You know, it's exactly the same here in my country. But just based on those answers alone, I would have voted for Mark. But given that Tony Liggett only just won his primary, you know, pretty close. Well, there was 3 candidates, which I guess split the vote, but he won with 51.5%. So if there hadn't have been 3 candidates and that vote hadn't have been split, it would have been incredibly narrow if everybody had voted for the guy who came second because there wasn't a 3rd candidate. So it would have been incredibly close. So Tony Liggett was probably, I don't know, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but probably maybe shitting himself a little bit, maybe shitting bricks a little bit about the election in November, especially when he had a contender like Mark from the Lafayette Police Department, who clearly had more ideas, more, you know, things like bringing body cams in, technology, a better moral standing, just a better speaker. Maybe Tony Liggett was feeling perhaps a little bit insecure. And given that the commissioners in July 2022 referred to him, Tony Liggett, as the next sheriff, then it's clear that the commissioners wanted him as well. Yeah. So the biggest thing in Carroll County, the biggest thing of importance in Carroll County at that time was Abby and Libby's murders. Surely. That was the thing that had haunted the county for, well, since February 2017. So what better way to ensure that Tony Liggett got elected would be to make an arrest for the Delphi murders. Tony Baloney. I like that. So making an arrest in the Delphi murders probably ensured that people would remember Tony Liggett, because Tony Liggett had worked on that case. He'd worked on that case as a detective. So he could go to people and say, listen, I've worked so hard. My team, I'm a team player. My team have worked so hard. And now, finally, our hard work has paid off and we've got an arrest. And I've been a detective all the way through. I've done my detecting and we've made an arrest. So in the defense memorandum here, when they made the point that the arrest of Richard Allen was made 22 days before the election, well, in my opinion, hearing debates like that makes me think maybe they've got a point. Maybe they've got a point. He was, Mark. He was the lead detective. Richard Allen was arrested 22 days before the election. before the election of the sheriff. So Tony Liggett got elected as sheriff 22 days after Richard Allen was arrested. How lucky. Yeah. Yeah. It is impossible to know the truth, but we're just, joining dots here. All right. Okay. One other video I want to play from R&M's channel, R&M Production, and I'm going to put R&M Productions channel link in the chat again. It is in the description box for those on the replay. But there's another video I want to play here. And this is The Reckoning, this one. There's a bunch of really good videos on here. I've watched a bunch of them now. But yeah, this one. I want to play this one. And this is about Jesse Snyder. Don't get to the beginning. So this one is about Jesse Snyder. But you'll see that there are some names that we've come to know very well in the Delphi case. Tony Liggett, Tobe Leesenby, Dan Dullin. Dan Dullin, of course, was the guy who interviewed Richard Allen in February of 2017 when Richard Allen rang the tip line. Yeah, that's what he said, yeah. He said, too many cooks spoil the broth. Paul Hall's caught the Golden State Killer and the forensic expert. So, Dan Dullin. I've got a problem with Dan Dullin because when he interviewed Richard Allen in February of 2017, and it states in the probable cause affidavit that Richard Allen, according to Dan Dullin, Richard Allen was on the trails between 1:30 and 3:30. So right at that very time when Abby and Libby were murdered. But when questioned as to, questioned by the defense, can we see the recording of that? Well, he couldn't find it. Couldn't find his recording. So interviewed Richard Allen and thought that he'd recorded every single interview that he'd done. But this one, for some reason, couldn't find it. He said, I'll keep looking, but I just can't find it. I can't understand why I don't have a recording of this interview I did with Richard Allen. But you've got to believe me, fellas. You've got to believe me that Richard told me that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30. And that's what's in the PCA. And that's one of the things that people keep harping on about, that Richard Allen was there. He puts himself there. People keep telling me, they tell me this every day, but Richard put himself there. But where's the proof? Where's the proof that Richard put himself there? There's no proof. There's no proof of what Richard Allen said to Dan Dullin. None. Because Richard Allen, well, he wasn't recorded. Dan Dullin said, I'm sure I recorded all my interviews. But no, this one, just this one, who just, fate would have it, is the one who did it, is the one who got arrested and, they're taken to trial. But no, that one recording has been lost. How inconvenient. You're absolutely right, Stephen. How inconvenient. Well, it seems that these guys have done it before. They've done it to Jesse Snyder. For those who weren't here at the beginning of this live, I'm just going to say again that Jesse Snyder, a young man in his 20s, was playing paintball with his friends on his own property. He'd recently bought his own property, playing paintball on his own property. And they were setting firecrackers off to, or mark a new round or whatever. They were just having fun, you know, young men blowing off some steam. And well, some officer heard this commotion, heard this racket, went there, illegally searched the property, ultimately resulted in Jesse Snyder being arrested on God knows how many felony charges. Dan Dullin said he was a terrorist. Dan Dullin took it upon himself to write to Jesse Snyder's employer, telling them that they had a terrorist working for them. And ultimately, the judge dismissed the charges, but that wasn't before Jesse Snyder's life had been ruined. His reputation had been ruined. He'd lost his job. He'd lost his home. And he ultimately lost his life. So these good old boys have done this before. And past behaviour, quite often, not always, but quite often predicts future behaviour. So we're going to play this piece here. I'm not going to interrupt. I'm going to let you listen to it. So it's 24 minutes. It's a really interesting watch, and it's really, really well edited. Really good piece of work here by R&M Productions. So please do go and check them out. Check out the videos. Give them a subscribe. I've subscribed to them. A paintball terrorist, exactly. All right, so let's play this. I won't interrupt it.
Breaking news tonight at 6, an arrest in the unsolved Delphi murders.
In the Delphi murder investigation.
This entire case against Richard Allen is sealed, but 13 News has been fighting to find out how and why those details are being kept secret.
13 News is continuing to push for the probable cause affidavit because by state law, it is considered a public document.
Explain your decision as to why you believe that maybe for the next 30 days, no one in this room should have access to those records.
We did it in this case because the investigation is still open. And while all cases are important, the nature of this case has some extra scrutiny with it.
Indiana State Police mentioned the sheer number of tips investigators sifted through over the last 5 years, yet they are still asking for more tips.
Allen announced at his secret initial hearing, October 28th, that he would hire his own attorney.
He may not have access to counsel in order to go retain one. Constitutionally, for Mr. Allen, though, is paramount. There's no circumstances under which he's not allowed to know why he's been arrested.
Carroll County prosecutors' rare secrecy in pursuing this case complicates the state's protection of Allen's rights.
Investigators are relying on a single unfired bullet to connect Richard Allen to the crime scene.
The method used to link the cartridge to the gun is called tool mark analysis.
The group is now challenging the science involved here.
Flawed forensic evidence is responsible, at least in part, for more than half of the wrongful conviction.
That includes tool mark analysis. 30 years on Alabama's death row after his gun was erroneously linked to a pair of murders.
The state police lab tested Allen's gun. The lab says the interpretation of identification is subjective in nature.
He is innocent. We are anxious for the public to read this. Is this what happens after 5 years of an investigation? Is this what it is? We don't have any other evidence. We don't have any discovery. That's all we have, and we are not impressed.
The prosecutor claims his office has provided enough evidence. Are you confident this is your guy?
The judge signed the probable cause affidavit for the arrest of Richard Allen.
Do you think Mr. Allen is the man on that bridge?
The judge signed a probable cause affidavit for the arrest of him.
When do you think you can tell that story?
We're going to let the courts decide.
In other words, let them decide when they can release that piece.
When Richard Allen was arrested in connection with the Delphi murders, many believed that the silence and secrecy of the investigation would finally come to an end, and that 6 years worth of questions would finally be answered. Instead, what followed was a series of unprecedented moves by the local police and prosecutor to cover up and seal all information surrounding the identification and arrest of Allen, as well as any evidence against him. For 6 years, the men leading the Delphi investigation have been trusted to conduct a thorough, competent, and honest investigation. They have been afforded the benefit of the doubt at every turn in the hopes that eventually justice would prevail. But who are these men, and what makes them so deserving of the public's trust and reverence?
The Indiana Court of Appeals is reviewing a decision to suppress evidence against a Carroll County man to drop all charges on 28-year-old Jesse Snyder. Warrants used to search Snyder's property were obtained under inaccurate information. Thompson filed a motion to dismiss the case due to insufficient evidence.
On October 27, 2007, Indiana Conservation Officer Todd Peckney was patrolling a Carroll County road when he heard small-caliber rifle fire. Peckney drove around trying to pinpoint the location of the shots and saw a group of people standing around laughing outside a nearby home. Peckney spent the next hour surveilling the individuals and the property through binoculars. The home belonged to 27-year-old Army veteran Jesse Snyder. Although he had witnessed nothing illegal occurring on the property, Officer Peckney requested that additional officers be dispatched. Shortly before midnight, a Flora police sergeant and a Carroll County deputy arrived to assist. With weapons drawn, the officers approached the property and ordered the men out of the garage at gunpoint. Peckney asked the homeowner, Jesse Snyder, about the gunshots and what they had been doing. Snyder denied that any shots were fired and explained that he and his friends were playing paintball in his pole barn and were using firecrackers to signify the start of each round. Snyder and his friends were then marched back to the pole barn at gunpoint. The officers lined them up with their hands behind their heads and their ankles crossed and patted them all down for weapons. When one of the officers entered the barn and began to search inside, Snyder stood up in protest and told the officers that they did not have his permission to go through his barn. Additional officers arrived on scene to assist in the unlawful search of Snyder's property, including DNR Officer Dan Doolin and Carroll County Detective Kevin Hammond. In order to obtain a search warrant, officers falsely claimed that they had reason to believe that there was marijuana and other illegal drugs inside Snyder's residence. A warrant was issued authorizing the search of the pole barn and one vehicle, but not of the residence or any outbuildings. Despite the judge refusing to authorize a search of the inside of Snyder's residence, DNR officers and Carroll County Sheriff's Office deputies entered his home and conducted what they called a safety sweep. When several marijuana plants were found inside the residence, the officers went before a second judge in a different county to obtain a search warrant of the home. Jesse Snyder was arrested, incarcerated, and charged with a number of felonies and misdemeanors, including possession of destructive devices and possession of a machine gun. It would later be revealed that Snyder did not in fact possess any destructive devices, nor were any machine guns found during the search of his property. Snyder was held in the Carroll County Jail on a $100,000 bond. After reviewing the facts of the case, a Carroll County judge determined that the officers had unlawfully detained and searched Jesse's home and property, despite lacking any reasonable suspicion or probable cause to do so. The judge ordered that any evidence obtained during the unlawful raid was inadmissible, and all charges against Jesse were ultimately dismissed. The local news labeled Jesse a homegrown terrorist and slandered his reputation in video segments and in print. Even though no crime had been committed and all charges were dropped, Jesse was fired from his job at the post office after DNR officer Dan Doolin contacted Jesse's supervisor. In his letter to the post office, Doolin repeatedly misrepresented the facts and embellished the case against Jesse, going so far as to suggest that Jesse was a terrorist who harbored anti-US sentiments. As a result, Jesse was unable to secure stable employment and ultimately lost the home he had purchased a year earlier. What started as an innocent night of paintball with friends turned into a nightmare that would disrupt and utterly destroy the life Jesse had so nobly built.
Jesse Wayne Snyder, 28 years old, Served in Iraq in the infantry during the invasion. Signed up for 5.5 years airborne infantry unassigned.
I met Jesse on the bus. I wanted a 45 someday. My friend wanted a 9mm someday. And Jesse happened to be in the seat in front of me, and he kind of popped up and turned around and said, "You got to go with the 45.
I met him the first day of kindergarten. I got in trouble with him for the first time, the first day of kindergarten, and been friends ever since.
Yeah, me and Snyder were always right next to each other, like for everything. So that happened fast. He has a sick sense of humor like me. That's probably why we bonded so quick.
I met Jesse in Iraq. When we got home, we used to go up to his cabin on the Wabash.
What is this, Jesse?
Oh, a lever. Jesse taught me more about guns than the Army did.
A lever? Safety?
He also taught me how to be safe with them.
He initially was doing well. He got a job at the post office, which I think he loved. It suited his style quite a bit. And but then the next thing I know, I'm hearing essentially, I probably was contacted by 10 people. Said, "Hey, did you hear about Jesse? Did you hear? What's the story? What's going on with Jesse? What happened? What happened?"
On News Channel 18, news from where you live.
Two men were arrested after police found a drug operation and possible bomb-making materials in a home near Cutler in Carroll County. 27-year-old Jesse Snyder faced felony drug charges. A DNR officer and Carroll County Sheriff's deputies went to Snyder's property to investigate shots fired and complaints of illegal deer poaching in the area.
27-year-old Jesse Snyder is being held on felony charges. Snyder is a former Army soldier and current postal worker.
Snyder is being held in the Carroll County Jail on a $100,000 bond.
Came to hang out with my buddies, get some good old-fashioned times down, do a little shooting, some paintball, hang out, drink some beer.
That night, okay, we played paintball. There's soft nuts. Whoa, I'm not liking that row. Mark, you be filming me? Are we ready for battle yet? Still recording. Oh, far again. What happened? Is it over? Oh, I see stars, man! It was like, boom! See the way?
Plain and simple. In the garage over there, playing paintball. We were using fireworks to signify the start of the round. And after about an hour of playing, sure as hell the man shows up. Cops come, we're in full battle route, paintball stuff. Come out back here, just, figure his misunderstanding of sorts.
And in comes the cops rush in for no fucking reason. Oh, we gotta call you poaching, which turned out to be bullshit. They're just bored and heard fucking fireworks going off. The signal started the round.
Like this, for a good half an hour to 45 minutes while they take us one by one. He's got Jesse, who lives here, because they found whatever. They pretty much have him in handcuffs at the time.
Step out, hands up, all that. So we walked in front of them, guns still drawn as we're walking. Tells everyone to come out. Everyone comes out from behind the barn. They get them all on line, crossed feet, hands above the head. Mind you, this was all on private property. They had no right to do any of this. They violated everyone's civil liberties while they were here. Even the judge said that. Charged with 9 felonies and 3 misdemeanors, ranging from dealing in marijuana, which is not I was growing marijuana. I wasn't dealing it. It was for my own personal use. I wasn't dealing it. That's the bottom line. Destructive devices, pipe bombs, which was an empty pipe with caps on it. You go to Menards, go to the hardware aisle and do the same thing. That's not a bomb. It has to have an explosive material to be a bomb.
Officers located 25 firearms in the Snyder residence, 5,900 rounds of ammunition, cases of assault rifle and handgun magazines.
2 pipe bombs and a military site for a tow missile launcher. 9 felonies and 3 misdemeanors. Here is a look at what Jesse Snyder is facing from the Carroll County prosecutor. Possession of a destructive device, possession of a machine gun, dealing and
Circuit Judge Don Curry has ruled that evidence collected by police cannot be used against Snyder. In his decision, Judge Curry found there was nothing about their conduct, nor had any officer witnessed any criminal activity that would justify citizens being ordered about their private property at gunpoint. The judge also ruled warrants obtained later were based on inaccurate information, and any evidence seized during the search is in. Carroll County Prosecutor Tricia Thompson says she's reviewing the options.
Carroll Circuit Judge Don Curry ruled in April that warrants used to search Snyder's property were obtained under inaccurate information. As a result of that ruling, Thompson filed a motion to dismiss the case due to insufficient evidence.
This victory for local law enforcement and media quickly turned into their darkest nightmare. As the case was overturned and the judge ordered all of Jesse's firearms returned to him. Every pistol, every rifle, every bullet, and even the cannon.
The media had a heyday with it, especially the local news reports. Oh, I'm disappointed with the newspapers and the news and how they tried to over-exaggerate this and make it sound so much worse than what it really was. They lied in the reports and that kind of thing. They didn't respect his service to the military. They just made me out to be someone I'm not. Yeah, I like guns, probably more than the average person, but it doesn't make me a bad person. And I do believe that Jesse should really get his job back. It's been almost a year now, and they have no grounds for firing him. Act like I'm some terrorist, which couldn't be further from the truth.
He had a good job too. I think he worked with the post office. He lost his job. And it was just horrible for him. Just fucking terrible.
That really hurt him. It was kind of a message from the post office that we don't believe you, we don't trust you, we don't like you.
He had gone into foreclosure and lost his home. And at that point, you know, I think he lost a lot of hope in that moment.
He couldn't get hired at a good job like the post office anymore because the charge is still pending. And even after the charges were dismissed, people are like, well, we're not going to hire you. Several months later, he told me that he lost the house that he had just bought. That's where I saw the start of the, I don't know, downward spiral, I guess.
And it was just horrible for him. Just fucking terrible.
And kind of never got back on track.
It's pretty much ruined my life for shoddy police work. I mean, there's those times in your life that things happen and you know from the rest of your life, there on out, it's not ever going to be the same. And that's one of these cases.
Shortly after 9/11, Jesse deployed to Iraq and bravely served his country. The war took a toll on Jesse's physical body, leaving him with back injuries and damage to his lungs. Jesse also quietly struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder.
I got a phone call from his brother, and I had company at the time, and I did not take the call.
I was actually here at Steve's house.
And a moment later, he called back again, which gave me a pretty bad feeling of apprehension.
Jake was calling back. He looked at his phone, looked at me, and went outside to answer it. Steve was outside for a few minutes, and he comes back in the door and just looks at me and waits for me to come outside.
A while later, we hear that he died. I don't know how, I don't know why. I think they found him like on the side of the road and he was just laying there. I don't know if he overdosed, don't know.
Well, at the time Steve was notified, basically they said they found him on the street, that they don't know what happened.
Don't know. Think about him every day.
I still visit Jesse at his grave. I go back and I swing through the cemetery because it's out in my neck of the woods, and I stop by and say, "You dumbass, man, I miss you."
Jesse passed away in March 2014. He came from here in Lafayette, Indiana. He always was invincible, wasn't he? Well, I'm going to say goodbye to you, Jesse. Been waiting until now. We'll regroup one day. Definitely. Until we form again, my friend. Until we form again. Beep, beep.
What is corruption? It is dishonest or fraudulent behavior, usually perpetrated by those in a position of power or authority. It is a betrayal by those entrusted to protect and serve all, to show favoritism to none, and to safeguard and uphold our inalienable rights to liberty and life. Corruption destroys trust, erodes goodness, and hardens the innocent, who suffer as a result. By its most basic definition, corruption is a departure from what is pure, what is correct, and what is true. What is a hero? A hero is a soldier who lays his life down to lift others up, who is kind and gracious in the midst of adversity and silent suffering, and exudes joy and laughter at every turn. A hero is a mother with the resolve to keep living, whose shattered heart keeps beating and demands truth and justice come hell or high water. A hero is a public servant in the midst of the status quo, who resists the easy collapse into madness and chaos and demands another way. A hero is a whistleblower who dares to speak the truth, knowing full well the truth will cost him everything. A hero is a friend who will not allow death to be in vain, a friend who sees the pain and suffering of his brothers and sisters and forges a path towards healing and change. So when it comes to corruption, there can be no compromise. It must be exposed and rejected at every turn. We cannot tiptoe toward justice, knocking once or twice, hoping that someone is home. Justice is a door that, when closed, must be kicked in.
Is that Tabasco in or something? Yeah, yeah, why not? Boy, that's righteous. He was parked down here watching us with binoculars for 2.5 hours. Tell the difference between paintball and real gunfire. Yeah. Pretty much, in my opinion, if you can't tell the difference, you need a desk job. My original charges were a Chinese throwing star, an owl's foot. When I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, my dad had an owl. It come up out of the ditch at night and he hit it. It was,
So you
stuck,
had
in the,
an
it was stuck in the grill, yeah. So
And that's illegal to have an output?
I cut his feet off.
We're on left?
That's correct. But yeah, he's outstanding.
Really?
Oh, yes. He's so good. He's so good.
There you have it. So that's the sad case of Jesse Snyder. Jesse Snyder, who was called a terrorist by Dan Dulin, who took it upon himself to write to Jesse's job, to write to the post office, to say that they had a terrorist working for them. Despite Jesse doing absolutely nothing wrong. None of the weapons that he had, yes, he had more guns than the average person, probably has. But light guns, none of those guns, none of that ammo, none of what was found on his property was illegal. And when the judge dismissed the charges, he had every single piece, every single gun, every single piece of everything, including a cannon, was given back to him. They said a pipe, just an average pipe that you get in a hardware store, was for bomb making. Well, where's the explosives? If that's for bomb making, can you not have a pipe on your property that you might be using for a DIY project? No. And then sadly, in March 2014, after he'd had his life ruined, couldn't get a job, lost his house, his friends stood by him because they knew the truth. But he was found dead on the side of a road, and they don't know why. They don't know why. And Dan Dullin's the very same person who, in February 2017, interviewed Richard Allen. But there's no record of that interview. And Dan Dulin can't understand why there's no record of that interview, because he's sure he recorded every one of his interviews. In Jesse's case, Dan Dulin illegally searched Jesse's property. All they found was a few marijuana plants. So could they have done him for possession of marijuana plants? Yeah, probably. Was he a terrorist? No. Was any of the activities that he was doing on his own property that night illegal? No. Were any of the weapons that he had on his property illegal? No. So a few marijuana plants is the worst that he did. That's all. That's it. That's all. So Dan Dulin, where's your recording of Richard Allen's interview from February 2017? We all want to know. Because if Richard Allen did actually say he was there between 1:30 and 3:30, well, that will put him there at the time of the murders, as everybody keeps telling me every single day. He was there at the time of the murders. He put himself there. Did he, though? Because we have no proof of that. No proof of it. Because Dan Dulin lost that recording. But yeah, so that was a piece all about corruption. So once again, I'll put a link to this video in the chat. I've already put a link to R&M Productions channel in the chat, but I'm going to put that in again. So this is their channel link, and the channel link is in the description box for replay viewers. But who else appears to be fighting corruption in this case, in the Delphi case? Well, we could argue, you might disagree, But you could argue that Richard Allen's attorneys are fighting corruption. Ex-attorneys. Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie. They're certainly fighting for the client now. They've certainly gone above and beyond for their client now. They're trying everything. They're trying every which way to fight Judge Francis Gould's erroneous ruling. In fact, it wasn't a ruling. It wasn't a ruling. She says they withdraw from the case. They withdrew. They withdraw their services. So therefore, she's had to appoint 2 new people. One of the people she's appointed did a live stream on this the other day. One of the people she's appointed, William S. Labrato, is the chief public defender in Allen County, where Judge Francis Gould's residence is, where she's a judge in Allen County. Is it because he's a yes man? Is it because they want Richard Allen done and dusted so that they can just say the Delphi case is done? These good old boys don't want to be made a mockery of, do they? These good old boys, Dan Dulin, Liggett, Leesenby, Hammond, and the rest of them. They don't want to be called liars. They don't want their incompetence to be outed. So one of the problems that Judge Francis Gould had with Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie goes all the way back to November 2022, when they were appointed as attorneys, as public defenders for Richard Allen. One of the problems, she said, one of the many things that she said they've done wrong, gross negligence, she called it, was that they held a press conference. Well, they released a press release to the public when they were appointed. And that was wrong. Can't do that. But that was the days before the gag order. As a result, so they had a right to speak to the media. They had a right to tell the media that they thought their client was innocent. Isn't that what a defense is meant to do? Defend their client. But it's the very reason why she put the gag order out in the first place. She gagged them. So now she feels that the 136-page memorandum, no doubt she feels that's skating around the gag order, but that was a court document. And the case isn't sealed. The case is not sealed. The entire case was sealed. It was completely under secrecy. It was Judge Francis Gould in, I think it was December 2022, agreed to release the PCA, but none of the other documents were seen by anybody. Well, not the public anyway, until June 27th, 2023, when over 100 documents were finally unsealed, when the case was unsealed. So any court document now in an unsealed case can be made public. That's what Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie are arguing. And court documents are not part of the gag order. So whether she feels that what they did in this 136-page memorandum is you know, breaking the spirit of the gag order. Well, that's just her opinion, because it's certainly not breaking the law. But shall we listen to the shall we listen to what Andrew Baldwin said in November 2022? What was so bad? What was so bad that Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie said that resulted in the judge having to gag the entire case, to stop any attorney or any law enforcement official from speaking again to the media? What was so bad? Well, let's listen to what Andrew Baldwin said to the media. Let's listen. So this is...
we don't have any discovery. That's all we have, and we are not impressed.
When you say this would help.
Let me start it again. So this is courtesy of Fox 59 News. The link to this video is in the description. Why is this zoomed in? Mega zoomed in. Okay, so this is 6 minutes. Let's listen to this. So what is so bad? I want you to listen carefully, because Andrew Baldwin must have said a whole bunch of dreadful things. He must have bad-mouthed law enforcement. He must have bad-mouthed the judge. He must have cussed and sworn and done all the things. You know, so much so she couldn't possibly have them speaking again to the media. Let's gag everybody now. Okay, let's listen. This is Andrew Baldwin speaking in November 2022, shortly after his appointment as Richard Allen's defense. Oh, I was talking and I was muted. Well, that ended a little bit abruptly, but but that's courtesy of Fox 59. So that was Andrew Baldwin speaking in November 2022, about 5 or 6 days, he said, after he was appointed Richard Allen's counsel, alongst with Brad Rosie. Now, he was very upfront. He said, I don't know anything about anything. I'm new to this case. I've only just heard the name Keegan Klein. I don't know anything. I've seen the PCA. And if that's all they've got after 5 years of investigation, of detective work, then it's not very much. Not impressed. And he spoke to his client. His clients looked him in the eye and said that he's innocent. Well, of course, he's a defense attorney. Of course he's going to say that. And of course Richard Allen is going to say that he's innocent. Of course he is. Yeah. Well, that's why in November 2022, when I saw this come out, I took it with a grain of salt, because I said to myself, yeah, but that's what all defense attorneys say. That's what they all say. And he's doing his job. He should say that. He should come out and defend his client. I was confused when, as a result of this, Judge Francis Gull put a gag order on the entire case, but it's not unheard of. You know, there's a gag order in the Idaho case, of course. You know, increasingly, I think high-profile cases do get gagged, because there's so much speculation, and it's very tempting for attorneys and law enforcement to talk to the media, and potentially something comes out that's detrimental to the case. I get it. I do get it. I understand what it's like, and it must be a very fine line for judges to deal with this day and age, much so than any other time in the past. But did Andrew Baldwin say anything wrong in that interview? No, he was just doing his job, defending his client. Admitted he didn't know very much, waiting for the evidence, waiting for the discovery to come through. They waited a long time for that discovery to come through. On R&M's channel, I'll direct you. I'm not going to play them, but I direct you to some interesting videos, which are further down here. Which ones are there? It's one about Nick. Where is it? I can't see for looking. Oh, there you go. These three. Watch these three. Only short. These are commissioners' meetings, and Slick Nick McClelland, who is the prosecutor, is there. And Slick Nick wants a pay rise. Slick Nick kept arguing for a pay rise of $5,000. He wanted an extra $5,000 because of all this work he was having to do on the Delphi case. He was only earning $85 an hour. And he's contracted to work for 36 hours a week. And he's having to work 40 plus hours a week because of this case. Because, you know, he always works above and beyond. He goes beyond the call of duty, so he wants an extra $5,000. And eventually it was agreed, there was a debate, eventually it was agreed that him and his deputy should have an extra $5,000. Because $85 an hour isn't enough for Slick Nick, because the defense attorneys are earning $100 an hour. So why shouldn't he have that extra $5,000? And I'm not saying he shouldn't. I'm not saying he shouldn't have that extra $5,000. Somebody at the meeting pointed out that that was an extra $2.67 an hour. But he said, yeah, but it's somewhere to redress the balance. And I guess, you know, yeah. All right. So we got his pay rise of $5,000 out of the fund that the county had allocated for the trial, I might add. But yeah, I don't begrudge him an extra $5,000. But it's why many prosecutors switch sides and go and be defense attorneys, because there's more money in it for them. But yeah, all right. And something else that Andrew Baldwin, this guy, now forced to withdraw just for doing his job and pointing out some things, said in this November 2022 interview was that he didn't know whether there was another person involved. Yes, Slick Nick has priorities. Oh dear. But yeah, there was a couple of questions fired at him there, saying, you know, somebody said, some prosecutor or somebody said that there was another person involved, and could he speak to that? And he said, I don't know. And Keegan Klein's name came up, and he said, I don't know, just don't know, not seen anything yet. And one of the reporters said, well, is that not mentioned in the PCA? He said, no, not the PCA I read, no. But yeah. There's still lots and lots and lots of speculation about is there another person involved, whether Richard Allen is part of it and he had help and he's just not saying. I'm erring on the side that Richard Allen is innocent at the moment. I'm currently 70-30. I was 99% sure. Until the defense brought out the memorandum, I was 99% sure he was guilty, based on a hope and a prayer that the prosecution had more than what was in the PCA, because we all know that the PCA probable cause affidavit is just a probable cause for the judge to sign an arrest warrant. That's all. So it doesn't have any information. People always get this wrong. It's no information about anything that happened in the investigation after the arrest. And of course, they've got lots and lots of more evidence, potentially, after the arrest, you know, that they didn't have before that. And then I went to 50-50. And then I went to 70-30. And maybe by tomorrow I'll be 80-20. I don't know. Every day that goes by, it seems that there's more and more things that come out. And Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie are certainly putting their careers on the line. They're putting their necks on the block for Richard Allen. And I think they've gone above and beyond their job. I do. I think they've gone above and beyond what anybody would expect any attorney to do, whether they're a public defender or hired privately, to defend him. They've gone above and beyond, and that leads me to believe that they've got a true belief, and they've seen the discovery, right? They've seen everything, or at least everything that the prosecution have given them. So if they knew that there was evidence in that discovery that really, really incriminated Richard, no, of course, they're not going to put it in that 136-page memorandum. They're going to miss some bits out. They're going to miss the incriminating bits out. But would they really go above and beyond in the way they are now? Or would they have simply been glad to get rid of the case? If they knew he was guilty, would they have even put that 136-page memorandum out? No, probably not. Would they have done what they've done in the last few days? No, they definitely would not. So I think that's very telling. I think that is incredibly telling. It really is. Has Andrew Baldwin made mistakes? Yes, he has. He has. Ultimately, he's responsible for what comes out of his office, and somebody that he trusted, Mitch Westerman, that he'd worked with for 7 years. He trusted that guy in his office, and that guy betrayed him. But is it ultimately his problem? Yes. Did he once send an email that he thought was to Brad Rosie and it inadvertently went to somebody else? Yes, yes. But is that enough to force him to withdraw? No, in my opinion, it isn't. And Brad Rosie's done nothing wrong. Nothing. Should he have been forced to withdraw? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, is there a killer out there walking free? Yeah, probably. There probably is. And the last video I want to play, I'm only actually going to play a little bit of this, is... Where is it? Hold on a minute. Hold on, I think I've got it on my other thing here. Just let me find it a second. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Oh, it is on this. Hey, stop. It was on that one anyway. Okay, so this is, I just want to play you the many tentacles clip. So this is Doug Carter, who is, he's a right little media bunny, isn't he, Doug Carter? And there was a clip there on one of R&M's videos of Doug Carter just after the arrest, being a little bit shady, not really very positive that they'd arrested the right guy. And it was shortly after that he made the many tentacles what's the word? Statement. I don't know why that word was escaping me then. So I found, this is on True Crime Design. This is just the top hit that came up. I typed in Doug Carter, many tentacles, because I initially couldn't find the interview. So this is on True Crime Design. A link to this is in the description box. So it's just the audio because True Crime Designers put some graphics in. But yeah, listen to the many tentacles claim by Doug Carter.
And there, like Hammer said about Richard Allen, how long he's been on the radar. When you see a story like this, is it? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it frustrating, especially when you see a police source confirmed this? That's what they're saying?
That's a leak from within, right?
Is that?
It is frustrating. I will say yes. It is absolutely frustrating because we can't talk about what we think, and I've said this many times before. You should expect us to only talk about what we know. And that even changes more so once there's a probable cause affidavit signed by a judge for the arrest of an individual. Not just Richard Allen, but in any criminal case, especially a complex criminal case. This case is unlike any that I've seen in almost a 40-year career. So there are so many different tentacles to this. It's very complex. And shame on us for saying something that might jeopardize that. So whoever this quote source is, I doubt very seriously that individual is a part of the core team.
The other name that's involved in this whole story is Keegan Klein. Now, he has not been charged with anything in regards to the murders of these beautiful young ladies in Delphi, but we know that he's locked up for child porn. We know that he had some sort of communication with one of the ladies the day before they passed away. Has he been speaking to police? Has he been given some sort of plea deal to help police?
We'll continue to work on Keegan Klein and whatever his connectivity might be to Abby and Libby and almost 2,100 days ago. So we will continue to work towards that.
It's hard to believe it's been that long.
2,086 days last Monday.
Wow.
So he said that this case has got many tentacles, many different tentacles. Well, what on earth does that mean? Because nobody seems to be talking about that anymore. Yeah, lots of people are saying that there's another person involved. A lot of people still believe Keegan Klein's involved. I mean, I think it's one mighty coincidence that he was in touch with Libby. Like, the Anthony Shots profile, arranged to meet Libby on the very day that she was murdered. I mean, that is one coincidence that it's almost impossible to wrap your head around what a coincidence that is. But is it just a coincidence? Possibly, because, Keegan Klein is in prison now for the next 40 years. 40 years. So he's going to be an old man by the time he's eligible for parole. And 25 counts of child porn. But there's no evidence that links him to the Delphi murders. But Doug Carter there said they're going to continue to work on him. Well, maybe they have, and maybe they still can't find anything. But Doug Carter said that this is the most complex case he's ever worked on in a 40-year career. Now, what is so complex? What is so different about this case? Like, what are these tentacles? What are all these tentacles? Because surely if you have a crime as heinous as this is, two teenage girls just went for a walk on an unseasonably warm day in February 2017. It wasn't even a long walk. They were dropped off at 1:49 and they were going to get picked up at 3. They weren't going to be out much more than an hour. It's a short walk down from where Kelsey, Libby's sister, dropped her off at, the trailhead there. A short walk to the bridge. They were going to walk over the bridge and then they were going to walk back. And then Libby's dad was going to pick them up. And Yet, if they had the right man in custody and they were confident that there's no other suspects out there, why does this case have so many tentacles? Because surely every murder investigation is potentially complex. Every crime scene where there's murdered bodies, you know, it's beyond belief when these two girls are murdered in the way they are. But finally, after a long investigation and many false starts, they arrested the right man. Why are there still tentacles? Don't get it. Don't get why Doug Carter would say that. And I don't get why, because I remember making a video. I remember making a video after that interview, talking about what Doug Carter said in this interview, thinking surely Kegan Kline must be involved. Surely must be involved. But knowing what I know now, knowing what came out in September, the memorandum, it gives me a chill down my spine. Because these things that were said in the early days after Alan's arrest, they start to take on a different, this is just my opinion, totally my opinion. They take on a whole new light. Because although in the early days of the case, there were lots of people speculating that this crime scene was so horrific and so different and had ritualistic indicators. All that's been said. Ives, is it Robert Ives? Never remember his first name. Who was the prosecutor before McClelland, had come out and said that there's signatures here. I played a clip of that in a video last week. There's unusual signatures. 3 or 4, he said. 3 or 4 unusual signatures. So we knew that there was something different, above and beyond the horror of 2 children being murdered. Something different about this crime scene. The fact that the cause of death had never been released, that was another possible red flag that there was something very different about this. Because despite what the investigators have said, they said that they weren't releasing the cause of death because only the killer would know that. No, often, very often, cause of death is released before the killer is apprehended, before any arrest is made. It's very common for cause of death to be released. So we know the manner of death is homicide. The cause of death is exactly how they died, how the victims died. In that Idaho case, we knew that Ethan, Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana had been stabbed. We knew that almost straight away. Cause of death wasn't hidden in that case. It was known straight away. So there's no real reason to hide the cause of death. No real reason to hide anything about that crime scene, really. I mean, obviously, photos and graphic depictions of any crime scene should not be released to the public. I'm not saying that. Do not misquote me. But a cause of death or basic issues, basic things about that crime scene, there's no reason why they wouldn't or shouldn't be released. It can even help in an investigation. It can generate leads. in an investigation to know a little bit about the crime scene. But in this case, that's been shrouded in mystery. And Andrew Baldwin and Brad Rosie, in releasing the memorandum, have been heavily criticised about, that they had a lot of words about the crime scene. And look, listen, that 92-page list of how Richard Allen couldn't possibly have done it, that went too far. That went too far. But there's no reason why they couldn't have included an abridged version of that, or given away the fact that there was signatures at that crime scene. No reason at all why they couldn't have said that perfectly, lawfully and morally. So they shouldn't be criticised for giving details of the crime scene, because Robert Ives had already told us, the previous prosecutor had already told us, that there were signatures there at that crime scene, 3 or 4 of them, that were highly, highly unusual. So is that what Doug Carter's alluding to? Is he alluding to this is more complex than any other case he's worked on in 40 years because of these signatures, because of this highly unusual element that's there that nobody's denying? Or do the tentacles relate to something else? Do they relate to people that should have been investigated that haven't? Does it relate to groups of people being involved related to the good old boys of Delphi? And I'm beginning to believe that it is. That there's links here between the good old boys of Delphi and the murder of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. So that's where I'm at with this case. That's where I'm at with it at the moment. But as things seem to be changing rapidly, what I think today, I might not necessarily think tomorrow. But I don't know. What I've put forward there is, at the very, very least, is food for thought, isn't it? Food for thought. And the floor of fire, yeah. Yeah. That's another one. That's another one. A deliberate fire just a few miles away from Delphi, where 4 little girls died in a fire. And nobody seems to know anything about it. Nobody seems to know. Carroll County Sheriff's Office, not having anything to do with that. No, nothing to do with it. That's a state case. But there's something very, very wrong in that county. Very wrong. Where am I with what? What's TCD? What's TCD? I don't know what TCD is, sorry. No, Kegan Kline wasn't mentioned in the memorandum, no, not at all. So, presumably, Baldwin and Rosie don't see him as relevant to the case. Oh, True Crime Design did a detailed pic of crime scene. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. The only reason why I played that clip from True Crime Design was because it was the first thing that came up when I put in Doug Carter, Many Tentacles. I didn't look any further because they had the clip. They had the clip I wanted, so that's why I've used theirs. I could have dug deeper and found the actual interview, I'm quite sure. So I don't have an opinion on anything else they've done on their channel. I don't know their channel. It was simply me putting in Doug Carter, many tentacles, and there it was. So I don't know if they made a depiction of the crime scene that was so lifelike and so, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it. So I don't have an opinion. But sketches or diagrams of the sticks, well, several creators have done it. I'll show you what I've done. Where is it? Have I got it in here? Of course I haven't. I haven't got it uploaded to StreamYard. Hold on. Okay, to reshare this. Oops. Do you want to see that? You want to see this? So that's what Gray Hughes did. That's what, is his name Richard Snail? Is that his name? Richard Snail and Robert Snail. That's what he did. So both Snail and Gray Hughes had seen the actual crime scene photos. So there's several people that have drawn depictions of Rick Snail, thank you. Of the crime scene. And I don't have a problem with people drawing diagrams. Court TV did these sticks, which that's Libby, that's Abby. They don't look much like the ones that Gray Hughes and Rick Snail did. Although Gray Hughes and Rick Snail's look very similar to each other, I think. There's some differences, but they look quite similar. But anyway, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with sketches and diagrams. Okay, so if it's not graphic, I mean, no, I don't have a problem with. What I have a problem with is photos. Is photos of dead people being out there. I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. Anyway, that's yeah, that's where I'm at with the case. I don't have anything else. I've played all the videos I want to play. Please do go and check out R&M Productions. There's some really good videos on there, and I've not watched them all by any means, but I am going to go back and watch them all. There's only 48 videos on the channel, and they're mainly Delphi. There's some on Letitia Stouck, and then there's one on Laurie Vallow, And then there's a few on Rex Heuermann. So I'm interested in all of those cases. So I think I'm probably just going to binge watch our R&M Productions channel. I'm going to spend a whole day binge watching their work. And like I said, it's some of the videos I have seen, I don't agree with. I don't agree with Ron Logan being a suspect. That's just my opinion. So everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And R&M Productions have got a right to have their opinion about Ron Logan. So I certainly don't hold that against any channel. If they have a different opinion to me, I don't hold that against them at all. True Crime Web. Is that the guy who had his wife in a hazmat suit and put sticks on her, like to try to emulate what the sticks look like? Is that True Crime Web? I think it is. Why don't I agree with Ron Logan? Because they found nothing at his house, nothing at all, that linked him to the murders. And there's no evidence that the lie he told, or he told his cousin to lie for him, had anything to do with the murders. And because he told his cousin to lie because he'd been out and about driving here, there, and everywhere when he wasn't meant to be driving at all. So then there's these two girls that are missing and then are found on his land. So he's thinking, oh, shit, right, I'm going to be prime suspect here. They're going to be looking into my movements like in that afternoon. I'm going to be shafted here. So he gets his cousin to lie, and eventually his cousin doesn't lie and tells the truth, and then he's shafted anyway. Not for the murders, though. There's no evidence that links him to that murder scene. That's the top and bottom of it is there's no evidence, even though the FBI searched his place. I've got the affidavit. I showed some of that in a video the other day. The search warrant was very extensive. They just basically wanted anything that could link him. And if the FBI can't link him, then I'm sorry, I don't think he's got anything to do with it. That's just my opinion. Because there's probably, well, let's put it this way. Let's put it another way. There's no evidence to link Ron Logan to the crime scene. In a similar way, there's no evidence that links Richard Allard to the crime scene. And also, I don't think Ron Logan's voice sounds like Bridge Guy. And I think Bridge Guy is a younger man than Ron Logan. So that's just listening with my own ears and looking with my own eyes. Okay, it's Farmer CSI. I watched what channel was he on? I can't. I'm really bad because I watch so many things, and they all start to mesh into each other. But I remember watching him on one channel, and chuckling to myself about Mrs. Steve with her hazmat suit on. He was dragging her. So it wasn't the sticks one. He was dragging her along to show that whether it's easier to drag somebody by the hands, like drag them backwards, or drag them with their feet. So he's dragging her along this wooded area. I thought, what a sport. She's great. So it's not just me who does stupid things in the woods in the name of science. So yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, True Crime Web is their channel. But I was watching this on somebody else's channel. He was a guest on somebody else's channel, and I can't remember whose channel he was on. But I was watching that live, and he was there as a guest, showing the footage of Mrs. Steve being dragged. She does. She definitely does. Nobody knows who the cousin is. Well, personally, I don't know who the cousin is, but I'm guessing that law enforcement knows who the cousin is. Have I ever watched Eye of Apotheosis? No, I haven't. Apotheosis sounds like a really horrible disease, but no, I haven't. But I'll check it out. I can't even spell that. I have things written down on this notebook that people get me to watch. Apotheosis. Okay, I'll check that out. Appears quite often on Mob Crew. It might have been Mob Crew. I just can't remember. I can't remember. I think it might have been Mob Crew. But don't quote me on that. Also, there's a few people saying he was on Mob Crew. Maybe it is Mob Crew. Because I do watch quite a lot of Mob Crew stuff. So, yeah, thinking about it, probably was him. Well, a dead animal is not the same as trying to move a dead animal. I'm not really sure what you're saying there. But anyway. Oh, yeah. Anybody who says that Kelsey was involved, no. No, that's just silliness. But a lot of people have said that. I mean, listen, who was the last person to see Abby and Libby? Kelsey. Who are the people who always get blamed? At least by the social media. The last person to see them. So, yeah. But some people have taken that, as they always do in every case, they take it too far. So, no, there's no way Kelsey was involved. Like, we know where Kelsey was during the time that the murders took place. So there's no possibility that Kelsey did anything to Abby and Libby. Oh, yeah, I've no doubt that one person. I honestly think that it would be in an hour and 15, 20 minutes. There'd be no problem that one person was able to murder two people and then move and stage their bodies. I've never argued any different. My issue now is that person Richard Allen? And I'm starting to think that no, it wasn't. So that's where I'm at. But If you don't agree with me, that's perfectly fine. I'm open to all opinions, and I just ask that you think for yourself. You think things through for yourself, but you keep an open mind, and you look at all sides. You look at all sides of the argument. And if you've been stuck on Richard Allen simply because of the PCA, and that's all, and you think, thank God they've actually finally made an arrest and he's the man, today was the day and he's the man, then although you're entitled to that opinion, and up until very recently, I also was of that opinion, I just say, well, maybe look at it again, and maybe open your mind a little bit and think, can we really believe the information that is in that PCA, and is that really all they've got? And if that is all they've got, then they don't have a case. If that is all they've got, they do not have a case. And given the amount of lies that have been told, given the track records of the good old boys of Delphi, then I have a really big problem with Richard Allen being in Westville Correctional Facility. And I really fear for his safety. I really do. I really feel for his safety at this moment in time. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a day. 2 hours, 90 minutes. I've been on plenty. So I'll be back with a video tomorrow rather than a live stream. So yesterday I did the members live. So if you're a channel member, then and you missed it, then you'll be able to go and watch that on the replay in the members area. So if you're a brand new member, the 5 people who were gifted memberships right at the beginning of the live, if you missed it, go and check that out. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you can check out as well. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with another video. If there's developments later on, I'm going to have to caveat everything I say on this case now with, if there are developments later on, then I'll be back. Either with a live or at the very least, a community post, depending on the nature of that development. So just keep an eye on my channel, and I'll be back very soon. All right, guys, thank you so much. I don't think I had any super chats, but we had those 5 new members. So thank you once again, Daughter of Scotland. Thank you to ASMR Tingle Pink, who put me on to R&M Productions. I didn't know this channel before that, so thank you. Yeah, thank you all for being respectful. Thanks as always to the mods, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.